preparation for the annual Thanksgiving turkey stuffing scenario. For many years we've used well, when we were poor, we always got a frozen turkey because they were the cheapest. And then for a number of years now, we've been using a fresh turkey. And the last few years, we've been getting marasinis, and we got one at Thanksgiving, which was very good. So this is a marasini fresh turkey.
Maybe you could sell it to them.
And so that there's no question about who the turkey is here, this is the turkey.
Let's hear for the turkey.
So the first step is to remove the giblets, which is always in the neck cavity.
Okay.
And
Maybe excuse me.
the neck, which is in the body cavity. Well, that's what's commonly called the Pope's nose. I cook that with the giblets just to make flavor. And the turkey then will be put back in the bag and put back in the refrigerator. And then in the morning when I stuff it, it'll be washed. But for now, it's just a matter of checking the neck and the giblets, tearing off unnecessary fat, blood, or whatever. This is the heart. Usually split the heart, makes it cook a little faster, but mainly to be sure you get all the blood out. There really wasn't much blood in there, but sometimes there's a good deal of blood in the heart. This is the gizzard, which has a lot of fat on it, so I take some of the excess fat off. Because if I don't, there'll still be enough of fat in the broth that the giblets cook in, and the broth I'll probably explain again later, but the broth is used to moisten the stuffing. Now that liver looks nice and clean. This is the tail end, which is cooked with the giblets just to give it flavor.
Were you picking out any pin feathers that might be stuck?
Yeah, if there's any pin feathers, of course this won't be eaten, but you still try to take all the pin feathers out that might still be there. See, there's one there. If you can get a hold of them, they come out easily. It's just a matter of getting a hold of them. So, rinse this a couple of times. And make the pan about 3/4 full of water, because some of the water cooks off. And just put this on the stove to cook.
Okay. Just by itself? Don't add any?
Well, I'll add, I'll put, sometimes I'll put a little onion. If I have some onion, I'll put a little onion in there, but I almost always put a little bit of salt, maybe a dash of pepper, and some parsley, just for a little flavor. But you really don't need anything, because when the stuffing is mixed, there'll be parsley and salt and flavoring put in with the stuffing when it's mixed. So that's the first step. Just leave that cook till everything is tender. Then take it out, let it cool, save the broth, just put the broth in a container, put it in a refrigerator, and then when I chop the celery and the onion, then I'll chop the giblets as fine as possible, because that will be mixed in with this. 18-pound turkey, usually use 2 loaves, at least 2 loaves of bread. And if the bread is laid out to dry out a little bit, then it can be, you can either tear it by hand, or last couple of times, I've been putting it on a cutting board and cutting it with a knife into little squares. If the bread is soft, too soft when you do that, it tends to crush like that. But it really doesn't hurt, but it's a little bit better if the bread is a little bit dried out, if you're going to use a knife to cut it.
This looks like
But
it's,
the bread should be put out far enough ahead so it has a chance to dry out. The bread should be dry. Shouldn't have any much moisture in it at all. The broth from the giblets will be poured over it before it's stuffed to make it moist. But this just shows you that the bread should be dried. And of course, this bowl makes a real handy thing to put the bread in, to leave it dry out, and also to mix the stuffing in. So tomorrow morning, this will be used to mix the stuffing.
you got a mixture of whole wheat and white in there?
Well, of course, I used to use white bread all the time, and then I started using 1 loaf of white and 1 loaf of whole wheat. And most of this is whole wheat, as you can see. There was some buns that we used that were white. I really don't think that whether it's white or whole wheat makes any difference in the taste. But the whole wheat has the advantage of the bulk, but the flavor, I think, is not affected whether it's white or whole wheat.
You see a possible shift to oat bran bread for the stuffing in the future?
Well, there's only one bakery that I'm aware of that stocks oat. It's just bread made with oats, or it's got oats added. And we just finished a loaf here recently. The oat bread that I'm referring to has a good deal of oat hullin, apparently, because when you eat it, you end up with little bits of the bread in your mouth that you really can't chew, because it's just bulk. And apparently it's the hull of the oat hull. But I like it toasted. But this is what will be used tomorrow then to make the stuffing. And sometime today I may even demonstrate cutting the bread rather than tearing it. As you can see, if it's cut, it's a little bit more defined in shape, whereas if it's torn, it has no shape. But again, that doesn't make any difference with the taste. It should be in fairly small sizes.
You could get the ingredients more evenly distributed throughout the stuffing if it's uniform.
And if you tear, it tends to be less uniform if you tear it. But again, it doesn't make any difference as long as you don't have a lot of big pieces and a lot of little pieces, because it was just mentioned, it makes it easier to get the other ingredients mixed through it more uniformly if the bread itself. Giblets start to boil, usually there's foam that forms on the top, which I suspect is from the blood or maybe other juices. But I always make it a point to skim that off and just throw it out. And then, what are we gonna get? Parsley. I add a little salt, not much, just a dash, pepper, and I put a little dry parsley in it. And that just adds flavor. And then just turn it down, leave it cook, just so it's boiling. And when I put a lid on, I never put the lid on, so I just put the lid on so that it boils at a lower.
Little bits. Or
Okay, the celery and the onion and the giblets, I prepared the night before. Of course, the celery's been cleaned. The idea is to cut the celery in as small pieces as possible. The smaller the pieces are, the better it mixes more uniformly with the bread, and it spreads the flavor through the stuffing. Much better as a result. So the celery, many of the celery stalks are fairly large, so I slit them lengthwise, usually into three cuts. Yeah, I like the stalks to be whole because it's easier to hold whenever you chop it. And I take three or four stalks at a time. Split them. Yeah. Just put them together. And you should be around the other side. Now the idea is to make the slice as thin as possible. Now you can do it any way you want. If you just take one cut at a time, you can see that's fairly. But you see, I have to take each slice a different operation. The way a chef does it, the key to doing this is to bend your fingers thus to hold the celery. You put the knife down and the knife goes against a knuckle. You see your fingers tucked under so you can't cut it. The knife is against the knuckle, so you begin chopping and just move the knuckle back. Of course, you have to watch your thumb so you keep moving the thumb back as well. You only do this a couple of times a year, but after you cut it a while, you get a little better at it.
Determine the amount of celery that you use. Just do it by
Okay.
sight, or how do you have a formula for that?
That's a good question. Usually, turkey's usually 16 to 18 pounds, and that's 2 to 2.5 loaves of bread. And I've never measured, but you can figure a stalk of celery, a stalk of celery.
Bloop, bloop, bloop. Stock of turkey.
A stalk of celery will make 2.5 cups. So there should be at least 2 cups of celery, about a cup to cup and a half of onion, and then just whatever the giblets are. But a medium, a normal stalk is usually about a stalk of celery. It may not include, the inner parts of the celery, the heart. I usually don't use that because that makes good salad. What do you call it? Roll. But otherwise, the rest of the celery from the stalk would.
Do you use some of the leaf as well? I noticed you
I'm
some of the leaf.
glad you mentioned that because I like to include celery leaves in it because that gives it aroma and flavor. As any cook knows, the flavors associated with the aroma, and so the leaves make good aroma and therefore add to the taste. Celery, when it's cut, then put in a plastic bag and put it in the refrigerator. Then in the morning, all I need to do is take it out of the refrigerator, and when I'm ready, dump it on the bread and mix it with the stuffing. Here's this is what I prepared for 17-pound turkey for 1988. Okay.
Hey, Mo.
Large. Peel the onions as you normally would, and then split the onions this way. Part of the onion, where the root was, is there's a little core there, or you tell when you clean them, which end had the root on. That's the end that you slice the onions lengthwise, but don't cut through the root. The root holds it together. See, when you slice this way, the root part there holds it together, and you don't cut all the way back. And then again, you slice it as thin as possible. And if you get where you can hold your knuckle against the knife, you just move the knuckle back a little bit each time. See how thin that can be sliced. Then as this heel gets small, just lay it down and chop that up. It has been cut probably a cup and a half to 2 cups there. And it's put in a plastic bag and sealed. Of course, onions really should be put in 2 plastic bags if you're going to put them in the refrigerator because it's difficult to keep that odor of the onion from getting into the refrigerator. It really doesn't hurt that much. But okay, these are the giblets. This is the neck meat that has been stripped off the neck. This is the gizzard, this is the liver, this is the heart. And so the liver is the easiest to do. Again, just cut the slices into the liver, then chop it up as thin as you can. so that the pieces are small and sliced as thin as you can slice them. Same would be done with the gizzard. With the giblets, after I slice it up, I usually just take the knife, go through it crosswise, just to chop everything up. Again, it's better that the smaller the pieces are, the better. This way, you really don't taste this in the stuffing, but the flavor's there. The pieces are small, so you don't taste it, but nevertheless, the flavor is there.
Is that a gizzard, Dad?
This is the gizzard. Gizzard's a pretty tough muscle, but and where there's cartilage, I cut the cartilage out. Again, try to cut it up in as thin, small pieces as possible. Off the neck. Here's one piece that's fairly long, but usually, by the time you get it off, it's chopped up pretty well. But you try to get it together, go through, slice it, chop it as best you can. This is where a sharp knife helps. And then after you get through slicing it, then again, just go through, chopping it up as small as possible. Again, by chopping this up small, you really never taste meat in the stuffing. But you do taste the flavor. It does add the flavor. And this is a heart. Same thing. Slice it. Lengthwise slices. Then slice it across. That makes fairly small pieces. And the morning when the stuffing is made, then your ingredients are all ready. Saves a great deal of time. It makes the job a lot easier getting the turkey in the oven. This will be put in a plastic bag as well. Hi.
Bye, John.
Here's the celery. Here's the onion. Here's the giblets.
So you ready?
Okay, one of the first things you do when you're getting ready for the turkey is to cut 3 pieces of string, one about a yard long, and 2 about 2 feet long. These are to tie up the turkey. Okay, that's all. First, you gotta get the turkey. First thing to do is bring the turkey up and wash the turkey. Rinse it off well. Run the water in the cavity. Take it around. Pump it out. Check the cavity to be sure they got all the stuff out. Wash out the neck. Amazing how clean the turkeys are when you get them. Sometimes there's excess fat. Here, I just pull that excess fat out. Doesn't contribute anything. I'm going to lay the turkey out to drain. And this takes a lot of washing hands, so I go wash my hands. Celery, the giblets, and the giblet broth from the refrigerator. Set everything out. These are the onions. And the bread. Start by just putting some salt, not a lot, but some salt on the bread. Just a dot, pepper. Then poultry seasoning. I always use some poultry seasoning. And a little bit of dash. This is just something for flavor, not too much. And bay leaves. I take just a few bay leaves. And I take them and bay leaves are a little bit large, so I take them and crush them up as much as I can with my fingers, just spread them around. This is something you're not supposed to taste, it's just to give it some aroma. And oregano. Same thing with the oregano. Just run it through my fingers and crush it up as fine as possible. And celery.
Celery?
Or parsley. Or dried parsley.
Okay.
Again, I crush the parsley in my fingers to make it as fine as possible. And I mix these ingredients. The bowl makes it real nice to mix. The onions are double bagged. You can still smell onions in the refrigerator. Dumping. Dump the onions. And the celery. And the chopped up giblets. I usually just sprinkle a little salt on top of this. A little poultry seasoning. And mix. See the size of this pan, when you have the mixture all together, it's just about all you can put in the pan.
what the size of that pan is, Dad?
I think it might, I don't know if it's marked on the bottom or not.
I'll check it
It's
out.
at least a 10 quart or maybe. As you can see, that looks pretty evenly mixed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of even it out against the sides
Mm-hmm.
of the bowl. Then I take the broth from the giblets. Sometimes there's heavy grease on the broth, which I'll take off. Here you can see there's a little bit of grease, but there's no heavy grease there. And so what I do then, I just pour the broth. The best way to do it is to hold the broth steady and just turn the pan.
Mm-hmm.
And by spreading the stuffing out the way I did, see, it makes it easier to put the broth on. And I usually put about 2/3 of it on, or at least I don't put it all on to start. And then I mix it again. You can feel it's damp now. If there's any reason you need more broth, or if for some reason you didn't save the broth that you put the giblets in, you can use this canned chicken broth that you can buy. Collagen is one kind. And of course, before cholesterol became a big issue, it was, and it is still popular to melt butter in the broth, or just put melted butter in the stuffing. But you can see that that has added moisture to the stuffing. Now I'll put more. In fact, with this I can, with the amount I had there, I could put it all. Now it's just a matter of mixing again. And you can, after you do this a few times, you just get a sense of how damp you want it. And you can form a ball with it, but it's still not mushy. Of course, that's one reason why you start out with the dry bread. So now this is ready to stuff into the turkey. Okay, you can stop there for a minute. See, this is a device which is very handy for this roaster. You want to be sure that these handles are set up, because this is what you use to lift the turkey out. And in order to keep the turkey from sticking, just spray the sides where the turkey's going to be in contact with a little Spam. And there the roaster is ready for the turkey. can smell the stuffing. It has a good taste, and you can see it's evenly mixed.
Yeah, smells good.
And on the counter here, we've put some wax paper on which to lay the turkey. Pour all the water out of the turkey. Lay the turkey on its back. I always begin by stuffing the body cavity. So the wax paper, the turkey in the wax paper, and a bowl of stuffing here so that anything that does fall falls in the wax paper. And I just form a ball, place it in the cavity.
How tight should you pack the stuffing in the cavity?
Well, most books say you don't, most books, cookbooks will say you pack the stuffing loosely.
Mm-hmm.
The way I prepare the stuffing, you're able to pack it as solidly as you can.
So you can really punch it in there.
You can really punch it in because by starting with the dry bread, you see, as I squeeze that, it doesn't get mushy. The bread, the pieces of bread all retain their shape.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you're able to stuff it in. Means you get more stuffing in the turkey, and it does not cause it to be mushy or detrimental from stuffing the packing in.
So it always cooks through and through. You never have a cold spot in or something like that. It always, it doesn't swell.
Yeah, well, that's right, and I always figure 6 hours, at least 6 hours
6 hours.
for cooking a turkey at, I always have to check the cookbook for the temperature.
Mm-hmm.
And the turkeys usually come with a pop-up thing in them, so the pop-up thing is a good indicator when the turkey is done.
Yeah. This one's got one?
Yeah, the pop-up thing is right here in the turkey.
Okay, it's
That is a good indicator.
they stick it where? Right in the breast?
Yeah, it sets there when
Oh,
you
I
get
see
the
it.
turkey.
Okay.
Now, you can only get so much stuffing in the turkey, but you put in as much as you can. Skewers in. Usually put about 3. I'm going to take the longest piece of string that take the longest piece of string and just hook the string around the ends skewers. It's just like lacing a shoe.
Oh, okay, once you get it started, you just,
So you just hook the string around the ends of the skewers, and then draw the thing up like you're lacing a shoe, and that closes a cavity. The idea being to keep the stuffing from coming out. You can put a knot in it here and there to hold it.
any kind of white string will do, right?
Any kind of white
Right,
string will
yeah.
do. I just happen to have that knot on there. See that seals or pulls the turkey together. Then I bring the legs up, bring the string around the legs.
That spool of string's been around for about 20 years, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nylon string, but wasn't using it for anything else. So I think it was used to sew tents. You just tie a knot.
Okay.
In a string. See, this is a little, just a little bit short, but all it does is keep the legs up the body. You turn the turkey over. And fill the neck cavity. And you can press it in as tight as you can.
This is a job, Dad, that you always do in your pajamas.
Almost always do it in pajamas.
Is this part of the secret?
Pajamas don't have anything to do with it. The reason why I still wear my pajamas because when I first, well, at least when I started out doing this, I used to get up at 6 o'clock, do the turkey, and have the turkey in the oven at 7. And in recent years, I've been getting up at 7 and getting the turkey ready to be in the oven at 8. But I never bothered getting dressed because when I would get up at 6 o'clock and put the turkey in the oven, when I got the turkey in the oven, I go back to bed. But since I have changed the time schedule a little, I seldom go back to bed after the turkey's in the oven.
sort of stayed in the habit of doing it in your pajamas, huh?
Just stayed in the habit of doing it in pajamas.
Well, that's a strong tradition, I guess. It's tough to break.
Besides, the first order of business is to get the turkey in the oven. And so that takes priority. You don't worry about dressing, you're just concerned about getting the turkey in the oven. There's a good deal of stuffing goes in this neck cavity.
Yeah, it always sort of surprised me. It's, you never expect that much to go in the neck.
I never expect to get all the stuffing in the turkey. Almost every year, I would not expect to get all the stuffing in the turkey, but I would end up getting all the stuffing in the turkey. But now, since I'm getting a little bit smaller turkey, if this was an 18 or 20 pound turkey, all that stuffing would have gone in.
Okay, let's see. How much is left?
Now with the
Let me get around here again.
With the neck cavity then, press the stuffing in, pull the skin up over, and take the skewers and fasten the heat. This is just a means of getting the skin to cover this. See that? I can put two in there, but one generally does it.
Yeah, how many birds did you stuff before you felt like you had it mastered? You had the technique down, all the ingredients proportion right?
Probably at least 20.
20. So that's possibly 10 years to, you figure a turkey at Thanksgiving, a turkey at Christmas?
Well, it's probably a little more than 10 years. It's probably closer to 15 years.
15 years to...
So when you get the neck cavity stuffed and fastened together, roll the turkey over on its back again. And it's really, at this point, you can put the turkey in the roaster.
Oops. Okay.
I usually take the third piece of string and just put it around the wings. And tie it, the whole idea being just to keep the wings against the body, keep it from drying out. The turkey's in the oven a long time, and so you just try to prevent any parts of it from drying out, because if it dries out, it won't likely be eaten.
Yeah.
I'm looking for butter. Getting cold. The turkey, when I've completed the stuffing, I'll take butter, just rub butter over the turkey.
So it gets a nice tan.
Gives it a nice tan. It little bit of initial basting. Butter does add flavor, and it's the as the turkey heats in the oven, the butter begins to melt, of course, covers the turkey, spreads flavor, and begins really begins the base for the broth that collects in the bottom of the roaster. So there's the turkey in the roaster, ready to go into the oven. And the remaining stuffing, I should have gotten a casserole. Can you pull that drawer open and look for a casserole that is such size that this will go into?
Okay, now let me ask a question, Dad. How many times on the average do you wash your hands doing the preparation of turkey?
In here.
Ah,
Probably, I think, yeah, well, either one of those. That's too small.
small, is there one underneath it? How about that one?
Either one of those may, that'll do it, that'll do
This
it.
little one here?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the one that's in there.
Underneath it, okay.
Set
Okay.
up. Yeah, I think that'll go. The extra stuffing, this goes in a casserole. And in recent years, I've been deliberately making a little extra stuffing that can be placed in a casserole. And since the turkey fills the oven, you can't heat this while the turkey's being done because the roaster fills the oven. This can be covered, put in the refrigerator, and at any time popped into the oven to heat. And this stuffing is not quite as good as what's in the turkey, but it's really good stuffing.
Well, you put some gravy on it and it,
With gravy, you would
hardly
really,
tell
I
the
don't
difference.
think you would know the difference.
Mm-hmm. Now you'd cover that with aluminum foil, huh?
Well, if there are glass lids,
Uh-huh.
these aluminum foil is a simple way to seal it,
Uh-huh.
either while it's in the refrigerator or to heat it in the oven.
Uh-huh.
And again, the hand washing for about the third or fourth time is the next task. And then the turkey will be put in the oven.
Okay.
The roasting timetable. I somehow never remember, but a 10 to 13 pound turkey, 300 degrees, 14 to 17, 275, 4.5, 5.5 hours. So I'll put it on 275, and maybe after a couple hours I'll put it on 300. But the longer the turkey is in the oven, the lower the temperature that is used.
And this isn't something you want to guess at, is it? You know, how long at what temperature to put it in?
No, you should consult a timetable, although it shouldn't be over 300 degrees for a large turkey. A smaller turkeys, as indicated here, 69 pound, 325, 2.5 to 3 hours. So 325 would be the highest 300 is kind of the middle, and 275 is something between 275 and 300 is what I use.
So you really wouldn't be interested in what that pop-up thing's doing until you get down close to the end of the time, huh?
That's right. The pop-up thing really is
It's just a fine tune.
the fine tune. Guess I'll go in there.
It is a pretty snug fit.
So that roaster pretty well fills the oven.
That's a preheated oven?
No,
No.
I usually put it at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes
Uh-huh.
to get the oven hot and to get it started.
Mm-hmm.
But I set the timer so I don't forget.
Uh-huh. Okay.
So the turkey's in the oven, check the clock, see what time it is. It's been
Well, less than an hour.
a little less than an hour. The last stage then is cleanup.
Clean up. So, Dad, after this, the next phase will be making the gravy, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Any final comments on this part?
Well, once the turkey's in the oven, it's you get back to bed. This 1988 Christmas falls on a Sunday, so part of the day will be devoted to going to church, but otherwise try to relax and enjoy the day. And of course, when your family's home, it makes it all that much more enjoyable.
Okay.
I don't consider stuffing a turkey much of a chore. It's just kind of automatic.
It's Christmas Day and the turkey is done.
Merry Christmas to all.
Merry Christmas. Merry
You got the clock.
Got the clock.
Okay,
What did I do?
turkey's
Yeah,
been
you're
in for the appointed time. It was checked previously to see how it looked. The top was taken off to brown it a little. You can see the popper has popped up indicating
it's
it's
popped
done.
Right.
The stuffing is stuffing out.
Ooh.
And so
I was gonna.
the sight looks good. The smell is even better, which you can't put on tape. There is the bird. The bird.
Let's
1988.
hear it for the bird.
Yay!
Bird.
Okay. We're rolling.
Lift
Okay.
the turkey, tilt it a little, leave the broth drain off to some extent.
Mm-hmm. Now this kind of a pan really takes the suspense and danger out of this job, doesn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's
Can't miss.
of course there's times when I need a spatula to hold the stuffing in the front, but it all came out beautiful.
That was interesting.
Okay, let's
So the pan will go on the stove to make
right
gravy.
directly on the stove.
This one person wanted to get rid of the Jews.
Okay.
Well, the way the thing worked out, the tables got turned on this person. The Jews were allowed to fight back. So when the day came when the Jews were executed, they were allowed to
Oh, okay, it's okay then.
Where's my tape, but, hey, John,
Yeah.
that, you could play that tape, you know, on that recorder today.
Part of the gravy making includes using potato water. So the water in which the potatoes are baked is poured into the gravy.
What's that floating around in the juice there, Dad?
Well, that was some chicken broth
We have chicken the other day, leftover stuff.
that we just put in to add flavor.
Okay.
So if you're cooking carrots, carrot water is good to add as well.
So any kind of, any juice you can reserve off of vegetables is good.
Well, Mother doesn't like to use cauliflower or broccoli,
Yeah, because
but
it-
I would.
That would be a little pungent. Yeah.
Probably would.
I would
Yeah.
use peas.
But peas or potatoes or carrots
Uh-huh.
is
Never.
good.
Okay.
I guess I'll add some heat to
Okay. So now you're just firing up.
See if this is hot out.
this. Just cooking the,
Okay.
well, we could mix
Oh,
the,
boy, there's hot.
Now what's the secret to getting a smooth gravy? That seems to be everybody's fear that
Okay,
the gravy's going to be lumpy.
I
the easiest way to avoid
prefer,
lumpy gravy is to use cornstarch.
Cornstarch, huh?
Use cornstarch instead of flour.
Uh-huh.
In either event, it should be mixed.
boy, I
properly.
should have just done
Oh, yeah,
that.
okay.
Even with flour, you can avoid lumps in the flour by putting the flour into a shaker such as this,
Uh-huh.
then adding cold water.
Of course,
You should add the water to the flour.
of course, it helps to have a 35-year-old shaker like the one you've got there.
Yeah, of course, this was what you kids
This was our
made Ovaltine with. This is
Ovaltine,
as
right.
old as you are.
Made
Almost.
milkshakes from it.
almost.
And this is, you kids made a lot of Ovaltine and
A
Milkshakes.
lot of
Hershey's
milkshakes.
chocolate
Yeah,
milk.
milkshakes. It's proved to be a pretty versatile thing. That's probably like one of the best investments we ever made as far as getting your money
Yeah.
out of something. It's great.
But with that much liquid, you need a good deal of
Okay, but
cornstarch, and you use more cornstarch than you would flour.
the other fear is, well, if it's not lumpy, it's going to be so thick that,
I thought you used less.
you know, you have to spoon it on. You know, how do you
This-
judge that? That's
Really,
something I was
Ralph,
worried
I
about.
thought you used less.
That's-
So how much is in there? It looks like,
Well, it's
It's
up,
on the side.
the first mark.
Well, it'd be-
Cornstarch is the first mark.
it's a cup though, right?
It's 1/2 cup.
1/2 cup.
1/2 cup.
Okay, and then you add how much water?
John,
Well,
get in there.
And what-
Put it in the sink
I
and
add-
hot cold water.
Is
I add
it
some salt to this.
salt? Okay.
Then I add cold water.
Cold. It's cold water. It's got to be cold water, right?
Cold water. Cold water.
Uh-huh.
And I make it at least 3/4 full.
3/4 full. So you're adding how much water?
Then I shake it immediately.
Okay. But how much water in addition did you add? It would have been.
Well, the water came up to at least this far.
Okay, so that's what, a cup of water? More than a
There's
cup?
more than that.
There would have been a cup, about a cup. Well, actually, this is a cup and a half, and there was a half. It would be a cup and a half of water.
Cup and a half of water. Okay. So half a cup of cornstarch, a cup and a half of water. Cold water, shake well.
You shake well immediately.
Oh, the heat
Yeah, so bad.
It's just milky.
Much in the milk.
And once you've done that, you can leave it set.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing when the broth begins to boil, just give it a shake and start pouring it in, which will. Even though the broth is boiling, when you begin adding the cornstarch, it will generally stop boiling because the cornstarch mixture is cold. But what you need to guard against is adding too much flour or cornstarch before it starts to boil, because it's when it starts to boil that it begins to thicken or set up.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to leave it boil for a few minutes. During the process, before you add all the cornstarch so that you're sure that it's not going to be too thick. Of course, if you felt it was going to be too thick, you could taste it, and if it is fully flavorful, you can add a little more water to thin it. The only problem there is you don't want to add enough water that's going to
Wait a second.
cause it to be less flavorful.
Okay. Wait a second. Hey, Mom, talk about those mashed potatoes again, all right?
They're in the oven
Oh, they're back in the oven.
Okay, well, just say a few words about it.
Oh, didn't you get?
No, I didn't have the thing on.
Oh, wasn't it on there?
Oh.
I goofed. I was
The
so
mashed
excited.
potatoes,
Uh-huh.
you know, heat milk and butter and cream cheese.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I use to make the best mashed potatoes in the world.
For the best gravy.
And beat them with electric beater.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And I heat that. I heat the milk and butter and cream cheese in the microwave. And it's hot when I, put in the mashed potatoes.
Okay.
But don't defrost your cream cheese
too long in the
in the microwave. My daughter-in-law said, set it for 3 minutes.
That's my
Where's-
I
mom.
said it for
Where's the
4.
daughter-in-law?
Okay.
There she is.
I
One
said it
would
for
have done
4,
it.
and lo and behold, it was melted.
You did it for 4. Well, that's I
Oh.
said
No, but I shut it off at about
Oh, well, see,
2.5.
Was that frozen when you put it in?
Yes.
Oh.
a couple minutes or
Okay.
3 should have been fine.
Well,
let's start with.
You learn something new every year, right?
Oh, yeah, he says it now. Sure. Now he says it.
I don't want
I love this.
Okay, so let's take a
It's
look.
recommended that you continue to stir the gravy until it
46.
begins to boil and boils a few minutes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
now he says it.
And as it begins to boil, you turn the heat down so that it's just merely simmering, because if it boils rapidly, a good deal of the moisture, water evaporates, it tends to become thicker, and you lose delicious gravy.
Mm-hmm.
But you want it to cook so that the flour or the cornstarch will be cooked. And you can see it's
Okay.
you're ready to add that.
Okay, Dad,
Of course, one another touch for gravy is to add mushrooms, which have been cleaned and sautéed
Bye, Grandma.
by the help. This is the kind of thing that this is the kind of thing that
Grandma,
the help can do.
Jane. Okay, let's hear it from Mom and the mushrooms.
We can get the medial test to Grandma.
Hey, Dad, just a quick review on adding the cornstarch to the gravy, because I may have missed that.
Well, as you'd seen,
Who's the winner?
the cornstarch is put in a shaker, and cold water is added and shaken immediately. Uh, Then, when the turkey broth begins to boil, you begin adding the cornstarch. And you add it slowly and stir as you add it. This avoids the cornstarch thickening or setting up.
Okay, and
As the cornstarch is added, because it is cold, it will cool the gravy and it will stop boiling. So it takes a little more time for it to begin boiling again. And it's important that you leave it come to a boil periodically, because it's not until it boils that it really begins to thicken, so that you can determine what the consistency of the gravy is going to be.
Okay, and we had a half a cup of cornstarch, a cup and a half of water, and it was cold
Cold
water.
water, shake well,
Shake. Okay,
and there will be no lumps in this gravy.
no lumps.
Don't mess everything up.
And in spite of the fact there's mushrooms in there, the mushrooms were not put in to hide the lumps. The mushrooms were put in to add more flavor.
Okay.
But you can possibly see that as I stir this, that the consistency of the gravy, it is, it's not watery, and of course it's not thick. And one advantage of using cornstarch, the gravy that's left over is going to be reheated and used on leftover potatoes, leftover turkey, leftover stuffing. And when the gravy is reheated, it will not be thick. It will be just a nice consistency, the same consistency as it is when you first make it.
Okay.
And that is not true with flour. Flour tends to get thicker.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's yours.
Is that mine?
No, that's Skip's, that's good, you don't have it.
Where's Joe?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
there you are.
It's final product. Another fine stuffed bird, finest stuffing I've ever had. It's always a pleasure to eat it.
Best I ever had.
Sure, with this one, this is taking the pictures, huh?
This is the, it's on tape. Some peas look good.
Okay, here's Dad with holding the final.
Turkey. This dish came principally from the neck, but I did take a little from the cavity. As you can see here, this much was taken from the cavity. Most of this came from the neck. So there's still plenty of turkey there,
Mhm.
turkey dressing.
Plenty of stuffing.
Plenty of stuff.
Everybody wants seconds. Okay.
This gravy's darker than normal.
Okay, you can hand it off to me then.
Emily. Emily.
Hi.
Hi.
Goodbye.
Did you
Goodbye.
taste it, Emily?
I don't know, but my grandpa made it and it's going to taste yummy.
Oh, that's
Good. Kid has a way with words.
Yeah,
She said something funny the other day.
Want me to get you some,
Look up there and say.
let me get you some mashed potatoes and stuff?
Good, great, good stuffing. Goodbye. I'm
Thanks.
right away.
Holiday meal.
Movies are just on cameras.
Thank you, Emily.
You want a grind of pepper? Yeah. Is there got, you know, we got fresh.
that's been in there 1,000 years, I guess,
Emily
since
said
you
how it
left it behind.
Oh,
You better watch, there might be bugs in it.
This is mine?
What was it?
Yeah, I don't know.
There won't be any bugs in the pack.
I just put fresh peppercorns in there.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
I want my Scooby-Doo, Mama.
Please.
What, huh?
I want my Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, I'll get some.
You want your Scooby-Doo?
I'll just get you a glass of water. It's upstairs. There's some milk. I'll get you some water.
I like it when they come in with a pepper mill about this long, and it looks like a log.
Excuse me.
We got them at the restaurant,
See?
but, so like, good bedpost or something.
Yes, so you can have a grind of. What?
Isn't that funny?
I'll get it next time around. Thought something was missing.
Yeah, that happens.
Yummy.
Yeah, that's good.
John's a good cook there, huh?
Yum, yum, yum,
Jane,
yum,
give me a
yum,
little
yum,
bit
yum,
of
yum, yum,
Spoon full of
yum.
cranberries.
Here, let me have your dish. That mine's
Well.
good.
Next good turn.
Well, we all enjoyed the guests last night.
Aw, she's so nice.
Yeah.
Nice lady.
Sure is.
Daddy, taste some of my turkey and see if you like it first.
I like it. I think I might have to have more.
Please.
Where's Josh? Where's Josh?
Hey, stand over here,
Let's
guys.
sing
I'm gonna
over
take
the
your-
river and through the woods. You know, you all kids know it. Over the river and through
beside him, one beside Emily and Annie.
Stand over there by Emily.
Embarrassed.
Okay, now say
Okay,
cheese.
get together. Get closer to Emily. Get closer to Emily.
Everybody
Cheese
say,
my butt. Cheese my butt.
say turkey.
Say turkey and dressing.
Turkey. Tomato sauce.
Say I'm a skunk.
Okay, get.
Hey Josh, say I'm a skunk.
I made night bomb. I like
What'd you say?
For some reason, the word light bulb is
Hey, you gotta take them along and take them in there and show them how to
That's
do
what I
it.
wanted to do, but I don't know if
Yeah, they
Josh
will.
didn't want to wear them.
Yeah, take them along.
Well, I thought it would be cute.
Now can we take off our
Cause
pants?
I'm gonna take your pictures where I took them last year.
Okay, okay, all right.
Can we take off?
Okay, you want to put them in, well,
Oh, they're really cute.
This is the cutest book.
Yeah, that is.
It's really nice.
Now we can get our
Somebody was telling me about this book, and I heard it, like I've read it, it's entitled